locker room with all the sports news you need. Live.
Good afternoon. Just when you thought you'd not seen enough of us this week, we come back again, back on your screens again. Yes, it's the locker room here on Friday. As always, our 5 o'clock show. Looking forward to the games this weekend. I'm looking back at the action this week as well. Joined this afternoon by a fantastic looking bunch. I have to say that because I'm sitting there, so I can't really say anything else. Firstly, it's Mr. Regan Stevenson. Regan, how are you, mate?
I'm doing well, Graham. Thanks for having me on again. I'm just glad that we've got some positive scores for Scottish teams in Europe as well. So I'm sure we'll talk about everything as well, Graham.
Well, 2 of them were. Not for me, unfortunately. And joined on a Friday. Doesn't usually happen because it's normally a Sunday, but Alistair Blair. Alistair, how are you, mate?
I'm fine, thank you. And I'm here on a Friday because, to be honest, you wouldn't want me on Sunday because you might see a grown man crying. So it's probably just as well I'm on tonight.
I've done enough of that for both of us yesterday, so it's all good. But as I say, we will look forward to the games this weekend. As always, get in the YouTube comments. We always love a YouTube comment, but please keep it clean. It's a family show. You might not think it, given some of the comments made last night, but it is a family show. But anyway, we will start with Scotland women, who tonight are taking on Finland in the Euro 2025 playoff. I believe this game is going to be streamed live on BBC iPlayer, so you can catch that 7:35 kickoff at Easter Road. Scotland go into this 8 games unbeaten. Now, this is over 2 legs. If we win this, we do qualify for the Euro playoff. Now, this is a big, big game, Regan. It's a really big test for Scotland because Finland are ranked 26th in the world. We are ranked 23rd. The last game we played against Finland, we got beat 2-1, but it was actually on penalties. So it's a big, big game for Scotland tonight. How are you feeling about Pedro Martino Lossa's team tonight? Do you think they can get a result to take over to Finland?
I think it'll be a difficult match because, like you said, we've not done too well against them in the past. But I mean, hopefully they're going to be Scottish and they're not going to be finished. Is that a radio call said years ago? But I mean, I just think it's all about progression for Scotland because obviously I started to pique my interest in Scottish ladies football when Shirley Kerr was the manager, Graham, and she really took the squad to the next level. And then hopefully Martinez Loza can do the same tonight, make a bit of progression for the team.
Couple of comments already in. Evening to our good friend James Elliott. Hope you're well, mate. Evening, guys. Sorry about the Hearts, Graham. Not sorry as I am, but we'll get to that, sure. And also, Paul Donaldson says, unable to watch on the way to Easter Road for the Scotland women Finland game. Hopefully a better outcome than what I was there the other night. So yeah, it should be a big game tonight. I mean, the women's game definitely has taken off over the last few years, Alistair. It's a big, big game for Scotland tonight. Hopefully they get a decent credit Easter Road. I'm not sure what the attendance is going to be tonight. But they are taking on a Finland team that is unbeaten in the Nations League. They will be difficult. But whether it's men's or women's game, you always have to see us qualify for a tournament. It's been 6 years since the women last qualified for a tournament. It would be fantastic if they could qualify for this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think just to go back to your first comment about, and also Reagan touched on this about the development of the women's game. Many, many years ago, I employed a girl who, at the interview, I said, tell me something about you. It surprised me. She said, I play football. And ironically, she played for Hibs, given it's Easter Road tonight. What she didn't tell us is she played for Scotland. and we had a company-wide football tournament because we're a UK-wide company, and she was stunningly good at football. And I went along to watch the Scotland ladies as it was then with her playing at McDermott, in fact. And they were very, very good. And when you actually saw her playing alongside guys, I think people don't realise just how good these girls are. And as Regan said, they've come on in leaps and bounds because the women's game has taken off exponentially in all sorts of ways. Because the media have got behind it, which is a good thing. You can see the crowds are going up. As for the $64,000 question of will they win the game, I genuinely do not know because it's one of these ones. The Finnish team are good. We are good. I suspect it's going to be like quite a few of the games we're going to talk about later on, where actually you wouldn't be surprised if either side won, which probably means it'll be a draw.
I mean, Regan, if you look at the women's game, I mean, everyone talks about Callan and Weir. We know how good she is, but the one that always strikes me is Erin Cuthbert. I mean, her story is really fascinating, and I just love the way that she plays. She's all action. She never stops. She'll be a big, big feature tonight, I think, for Scotland.
And especially because Chelsea are a big team in the ladies' game, Graham. She's really progressed it, and I know we've got players that are playing for Real Madrid, I'm sure, Man City. So all of these players that have got big time experience, it'll help the team progress, and it's only good for the team because they want to try to go as far as they can, and then that means that for the future generation of females that want to play football, then they can see a really inspiring bunch of players.
I mean, I think, Alistair, it does show the women's game. It definitely is heading in the right direction, because I remember going to Easter Road to watch the Hibs Hearts women's game a while ago with my laddie. Over 6,000 were out the game. And then the game at Tynecastle a few weeks ago, again, I think over 5,000. Yeah. So the crowds are actually getting a lot better. And when you look at the Celtic Rangers women's game not that long ago, a fantastic game of football, some cracking goals in that as well. The women's game is definitely in a really good place, although don't tell Joey Barton that, because he'll probably hate that. But it isn't a very good place just now. And I think it's good that it's got a highlights package on BBC. It's also got some live games as well. It is really good to see other folk taking interest in it, because let's be honest, a while ago that wouldn't have happened.
No, it absolutely wouldn't have it. And there was a lot of people. I remember Tam Cowan got in a lot of trouble for running it down, if you remember.
I remember that.
It was probably about a decade. I don't know. It's probably a lot further ago than you think. Now there's no way you would say that. And I think you find that the point again that Reagan made about inspiring other people to do it, and you're talking about the big English clubs, you look at how England have prospered, getting to finals and things like that. And that's had a huge impetus. And I know, again, with my Football Supporters Association hat on, I mean, our social media guys, they're constantly sharing stuff where teams are looking for players at every age level in the women's game. So you've got under 9s, under 12s, and I go on quite regularly and look at it as well. There's a huge demand for it. And you talked about crowds of 6,000. There'll be a few Premiership clubs would be quite glad of 6,000, most weekends, And again, with my SFSA hat on, we've got a new girl in called Sinead Ramsey, who's leading on women's football. She's been posting stuff. One of the Celtic games against 20 and Shady. She's going to go and do stuff in the Highlands. She's also going to look at the development of a young teenage girl who's a good player and how she's coming through. So there's all sorts of ways that people are actually actively trying to promote the game. And that can only be a good thing. I suppose with my trying to be reasonable all sides, the only potential downside is I think other sports are probably going to suffer because girls are going to go and play football before they play anything else. And that, if you put your Scottish hat on again, there'll be certain things which we are really good at, which possibly people will go off and they'll do the most popular sport. But that's the way the world goes. It's the same with men's football.
Yeah, I mean, Reagan, like I said, it's going to be a hard game tonight. Finland actually come into this on the back of a really good result against Hungary to get to this in the first place. But at home, with a home crowd behind us, I think Pedro said I've got a very good chance here. And as I said, we're 8 games unbeaten. If we can take a lead over to Finland and then obviously maybe try and hold on to that, it would be massive. And like I said, to see the women get to a Euros would be fantastic, because it's 6 years since the last one. So it'd be great to qualify.
And I think, obviously Steve Clarke's done that with the men's for the past two Euros. So it'd be great for everybody to get behind the females. I know it's in 2025, so there's no Euros for the men's then, so there's no major tournaments. So that's a big chance for the ladies football to take some of the spotlight, and this is a big opportunity for them. And I think in terms of Scotland, I think it's all about trying to make football as accessible as possible. I seen a thing the other day, Alistair, that people are charging £200 for people to go and play football in a park. And I'm thinking, well, that is surely one of the big reasons why we struggle to produce players, because if you're charging people £200 to access a park, a lot of people are not able to afford that. And okay, if you go to a local sports centre or a local place to play, everyone can chip in, but it's still very expensive, Scottish football.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, sorry, I'm putting my SFSA hat on quite a lot tonight, because the grassroots game and the development of it, both for boys and girls, is so fundamental to our success. And there's the SFA report on youth development, which showed that compared to other comparable countries, we haven't got the same number of people coming up through the ranks. And surprise, surprise, people like Croatia are much better than us. And surprise, surprise, I know we beat them, but by and large, Croatia are a better team than us. So they've had a hell of a lot more success than we have in the last couple of decades. So I think you're right, Regan. It's absolutely fundamental that we enable people to play football as far as possible for free as they're coming up through the ranks. And yeah, okay, I know you've got to pay for the referees and all that kind of stuff, but you can take this way back to the teacher strike and the fact that schools stop playing so much, the reduction in the number of playing fields, the fact you've got to pay more for them. Councils are cash strapped, so they're looking for more money to get the money back. It's none of these things are particularly good for Scottish football.
It's funny because I'm going to sound really old here, and I probably am compared to Reagan, but when you do these kind of live shows, things just pop up in your head that you kind of think about. I remember when I was younger, I was at the park pretty much every day playing football, and there was loads of folk playing football as well alongside us. You don't see that now because folk have got Xbox, they've got PlayStations. I feel like some of it's still game. Do you like the Xbox? I love the Xbox. But yeah, that's how old I'm getting. But yeah, you don't really see a lot of kids now playing football. And some places you go to, I'm sounding so old for I say this. I actually feel bad about this. But you see a lot of places now that actually say no ball games. I mean, that's why you don't maybe see a youngsters playing football now, because that's a big, big problem.
You're absolutely right. And I mean, you think you're old. What's an Xbox? So I was talking to my wife about this today, and we were just basically driving through the village, and there's cars everywhere. There's cars parked everywhere. And when I was a lot younger than both you guys, we played football, as you say, every night. There was a field at the end of the road. We went along, played there. When it was dark, we played in the street because the street lights illuminated it. We played against my dad's garage. There was hardly any cars there. And my wife was talking about playing rounders and things in the street when she was a wee girl. And you had all that stuff, and it was completely unorganised, but it was brilliant. And it's really hard not to sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but it's really difficult for kids nowadays because they have the organised stuff, and that's kind of it. They can't, parents won't let their kids go out. And again, I was talking to my wife. When I was 6, I used to get 2 buses back from school, and it was like, you would never let a 6-year-old do that now. Never let them do it.
Well, yeah.
The world. There's no point. The world has moved on. There's no point decrying it. You can't stop it. But all these things, going back to the central theme, they have a big impact on Scottish football. And if we want Scotland to qualify both in the women's game and the men's game, we've got to have better players coming up through the ranks, and we've got to do something about it. And if I can just get in a wee bit here, if I'm allowed, Graham.
Yeah, you go.
Next Wednesday, I'm going to Holyrood as part of the SFSA delegation for the round table. It's the second meeting of the round table on the future of Scottish football. So we're sitting with the Minister, Marie Todd, a lot of MSPs and the football authorities. And there will almost certainly, I think, be the people like Aileen Campbell, who runs Scottish women's football. This is a really important thing. These are the kind of issues which are going to be talked about around there. And it's how can we introduce more transparency, more accountability, but more to the point, how can we look to the future with these things? Now, this may sound really, really dry, and it's not half as exciting about talking about how much Rangers might beat St Johnstone about the weekend. But actually, it's at the basis of everything you're talking about. If the country gets this right, and the politicians have a part to play, because they can actually make things happen in many respects, the football authorities get pilloried, sometimes deservedly, sometimes not. But if we just spend all the time shouting and moaning, nothing gets done. So that was my wee plug for the round table. As I said, people forget all about it. Nobody really gives a whatever about governance of football. They really want to know if their team's going to win. But it's fundamental, all the stuff we've just been talking about.
I think you're spot on because, of course, everybody enjoys football now, but it's also important to make it accessible for the future generation as well. Alistair.
Yeah, and that applies also to para-football, to all the different divisions of para-football, Deaf, CP, Team United, if you've come across them, which is autistic football. That then has a knock-on effect in terms of people with visible and non-visible disabilities getting into the crowds. As you guys know, because I've sent you all the link, we've got surveys on the go at the SFA just now about women's football and social abuse, and also about disabled facilities. And we're not doing it because we want to actually create trouble. We're doing it because we want to find out and actually make things better. It's as simple as that. Sorry, I'm sorry, Graham. We're going way off the subject of this weekend's game.
No.
No, I mean, it's a good point that you've raised there. And I mean, the surprising thing for me is you actually said something that I was surprised about. You speak to your wife. I don't tend to do that to mine. So, I mean, fair enough. No, it's just a little point. But yeah, just to say hello to Connor Henderson. Do you think Aberdeen will wake up after the Hibs result? We will get to that very shortly. But yeah, I mean, you're looking at Scotland tonight. Reagan, do you fancy Scotland to win this first leg tonight? Are you confident?
I think with the home crowd, I think hopefully we'll get a lot of supporters down there. I know Paul Donaldson, who talks to us on a regular basis through the locker room game, he's going to be there, so it's going to be good. I don't know if they're expecting a big crowd, but I don't know, Graham. Is Finland kind of close to Scotland in the world rankings, or Finland kind of?
Yeah, there are 3 places off. Scotland to 23rd, Finland to 26th.
Oh, I'm going to say Scotland to win 2-1.
Alistair, do you fancy Scotland to win this first leg tonight?
Usually when people ask me to predict games, I always say I'd settle for a draw, because by and large, if it's in Johnson fan, that's a good result. So I wouldn't settle for a draw. I would like them to win. Clearly, if you look at the world rankings, they should win. But we all know that doesn't necessarily apply once you get across the white line. So I genuinely don't know. I think they're more likely to win than not. But again, as I said earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a draw, because as you said, Graham, Finland are no mugs.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good luck to Pedro Martinez Losa's team tonight. Hopefully I can do Scotland proud. But to move on, we will get to the games like this weekend very shortly. But just to move on to something else I want to talk about, and this actually coincides with women as well. What a segue this is. Because Scotland national women's team's coach, or ex-Scotland women's team coach, Shelley Kerr, was this week appointed, under the radar, I think this is gone, as technical development manager at Hearts. So she will oversee the development of B-team players and academy players to the first team. Now, it's a bold appointment. It's a big, big move. It's the first time a women's actually managed to get a job like this in the men's game. And it's safe to say that it didn't get a lot of many positive Hearts fans' reactions. Now, I was happy with it. I've got no issue with it. If she's the right person for the job with the analytics, I'm fine with it. But I made the mistake of going on social media after Hearts announced it, and I thought I'd have a look at some of the comments. Bad idea on my part. So what I've done is I've written down some of the negative comments that I can read out, and I'll get to other things in a minute. But some of the comments from Hearts fans here. Box-ticking nonsense. Please let us go bust. Woke nonsense. And it actually said in Hearts' official statement, we are pleased to announce Shelley Kerr. Somebody has put, pleased is the opposite of how I feel. Now, I was with it, and to be fair, a lot of Hearts fans were very much with the appointment as well. No issue with it at all. But Alistair, I had said last week on the show on Friday, before he even knew about it, will we ever see women managing in men's game in Scotland? Now, on the back of what I've just read there, why would they want to? Because that is some of the nonsense that you will see if it ever happens.
No, you're right. And I think I was on the show and we were talking about, will women manage in the Premiership? And I think I said, no, they won't. Because I think at that level, at the absolute elite level, I think it would be a bridge too far for an awful lot of the players. But that doesn't mean it's a bit like blind CVs for recruitment. If you actually don't know somebody's sex, or you don't know, their qualifications and all that kind of stuff, you should, in theory, have a better recruitment process. The reality is, when it comes to this kind of thing, that you need to know their qualifications, you need to know their experience, but you don't actually need to know their sex. And that, to my mind, is probably where we should be starting. I think it will be really interesting to see how it goes, because if you just take away the fact that she's a woman and she succeeds, then there's no reason you'd think why that she then might not get elevated. I still think it would really just be, for an awful lot of people, they just couldn't see it. But that's partly because, going back to the fact I'm old, and I've probably got more old-fashioned ideas in that sense, for an awful lot of people, they just couldn't get their heads around it. But the world's moved on. I mean, we might talk later on about the magic squares of artificial pixelated turf that Celtic are selling. Whether we like it or not, the world does move on. And she's clearly a good coach. She's clearly got a track record. And the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. I take your point, though, Graham. I'm on an SFSA kick tonight. The social media abuse in the women's game several we're running, we're doing it because we know there is far more misogynist abuse directed towards women in football than towards men. And let's be honest, men get enough grief on social media anyway in the men's game. So if you multiply that by 50%, you get an idea of what it's like in the women's game. And you obviously couldn't read out all the bad stuff. And I'm sure there was quite a lot of that as well. None of that reflects particularly well, with the greatest respect, on the people saying it. It's not really the kind of society that we want to live in nowadays. So I hope she succeeds. I think it'll be really difficult. But then again, quite a long, long time ago, a whole lot of women thought it'd be a good idea if they got the vote, and an awful lot of men weren't keen on that happening. And look what we've got now.
Connor says, I think it's incredible women got the job in men's game. Obviously very professional, and wish her all the best. Hope ignorance doesn't drive women off. Now, there were actually more positive comments than negative comments, Reagan, but again, it's comments like that you think might put people off. But if she's qualified, the best person for the job, I have no issue with it. She's going to be helping the development of young players at Hearts. She's obviously well qualified for it. Wouldn't give her a job in the first place. But surely it's a bold thing from Hearts to do this, and it's something different. And I don't get why, well, maybe I do at times, but I don't get why she's getting as much stick. She only just got the job. You've got to give her a chance.
I think it's a positive appointment, because I think it shows that she's worked at a very top level of football. I mean, she's qualified Scotland for a major tournament. She's also worked at, I think it was Stirling in the Lowland League as well. She's worked at very successful organisations. She was part of the SFA for a very long time. She qualified Scotland for the very first time. She was part of the revolution of trying to get supporters through to Hampden. She was part of trying to get young females playing Scottish football. So I don't see a downside to this. But it also goes back to what I was talking about, social media. I'm not a big fan of social media. I don't really interact with many people on it. My page is like I tend to just post football stuff on it. I don't tend to put too much on it because I think there's a lot of negativity, and like you said there, a lot of people are going to jump on it, and I can understand why, but I think sometimes we just need to be open, and we need to understand, like I also said, that stuff's moved on now, and the only way she can prove these people wrong is if they get off her back and let her do her job properly. And like you said, Graham, I don't think a big club like Hearts or a big organisation like the SFA are just going to do it because it ticks a box. I think that was one of the points you made earlier. I mean, they could have picked anybody to come in. She obviously went there. She's got a track record, like I've spoke about. So I think we just need to show people a bit of patience and a bit of time.
Alistair, not just in, obviously, if you look at the women's game, like in terms of commentary, there's a lot of women commentators now in England and Scotland.
Yeah.
Some of them good, some of them not so good. But you got a lot of men that are terrible at commentary as well. It just goes through the world we live in now. Women get a lot more stick than the men get, when a lot of men that I've heard are terrible at what they do. I could name a few, but I won't. But, there is nothing wrong with women getting a job in football. You look at something like Soccer Saturday, for example. They've got a lot of women on that do the commentary, and they're actually quite good at it. I have no issue with it, and I don't see why the folk do it. For me, it's not woke. It's not nonsense like other folk have said. It is good, and there's no reason they shouldn't be allowed to talk about a thing that they love, personally.
Well, let me give you an analogy. I'm sorry, I'm getting old again. You might remember this, Graham, but I don't think Reagan will. But do you remember when Mark Walters came to play for Rangers? that was now there were black players, and again, that's probably the correct language to use this. I probably will get it wrong, but in my experience, most people will forgive you if you excuse me, if your heart's in the right place. Mark Walters got absolute dog's abuse, and I'm afraid to say that the two worst offenders were Celtic and Hearts, with throwing bananas at him and all that kind of stuff. And an awful lot of people sort of just went along with it and thought, well, so what? We've come so far in terms of that. If you look at most teams in the Premiership now, they've got black, non-white players, and everybody's absolutely delighted. When they go, well, we've got two up front. Do I care what colour the player is when they score a goal? Absolutely not. Doesn't make a blind bit of difference to me. All that matters is they've scored a goal, and we need to get to that stage with the women's game as well. But there is undoubtedly a much stronger degree of misogynistic abuse, as Reagan says, on social media, and the problem is you can't escape from it. I think there was, well, no, I won't go down that particular road, but the point about social media is extremely opposite, because we've got a set of guidelines for them. We've got about 5 guys who do the social media for us, and they take it in turns, but there's various rules. Avoid politics, because that way you can open the floodgates, and be really careful around the old firm, because the old firm, there'll be people who will take umbrage no matter what. And there's certain things which most people will stand up for, but there needs to be more people stand up for women's football in the same way they stood up for black players, and we normalise that, and that's where we've got to get to.
Connor says she's clearly more able than the men who applied. Anyone who says it's woke nonsense is just extremely arrogant, and I completely agree with that, Reagan. I mean, generally, when I saw the news, I was happy with it. I thought, if she's the best person for the job, I'm fine with that. And like I said, there was a lot more positive comments than negative comments, but it feels like folk just like to moan for the sake of it. She's not even in the job yet. You've got to give her a chance, but it seems to like that with everyone. But like I said, there's a lot of men out there who do punditry or do even coaching that aren't very good, but they don't get criticised as much as women do, and it needs to stop.
Yeah, I mean, if she's got the qualifications there to back it up, then she should be given the opportunity. I mean, like, it's like anything in life. It's like if you go for a job interview, the best person for the job should get the job, no matter what sex, what disability, what gender, anything. It should be the best person for the job, and I'm sure she's got it on that criteria.
Yeah, I think you're right, Reagan, because again, just going back to sort of historical stuff, if you look at Morag Pirrie, who was the first well-known female referee, she had the famous incident with Peter Hetherston, I think he was the Albion Rovers manager, who said that she should be basically at home making her man's tea. He then left his job before he got fired, which is probably quite a good move. And I spoke to her when I did the referees book, and the amount of grief that she got. Bear in mind, like all referees, she came up the ranks, and she ended up doing, international matches, European matches, the women's game. It doesn't make a blind bit of difference what sex the referee is. The referee is the referee, and if they're good, it honestly doesn't matter whether pink, orange, blue, whatever, or male or female. It really is get on with the game. Now, I appreciate that clearly there are, going back to Reagan's point, the best people for the job. In men's football, are going to be men. That's the reality, actually, to play the game. But that doesn't mean that they have to be men to actually teach them and train them if they've got the skills. To go back to Reagan's point, if you've got somebody, I think Connor's point as well, if they're the best applicant and they've got the experience, the skills, the personality, because that's important as well, can they fit into the club? Will they actually buy into it? Then give them the job.
See, if you look at any actual proper first-team manager, like Graham Potter, Ange Postecoglou, Brendan Rodgers, none of these guys actually played football. Brendan Rodgers has got a degree in psychology. Potter, he I don't think he played much football down in England, and then he stopped early, and then he's became one of the best coaches. So I think also we just need to be mindful that a lot of these people actually do hard work to get where they're supposed to be. I can understand if sometimes that these places are overpopulated, but I'm sure she's went through a strict process.
Yeah, she would have done. Absolutely. You know, she's obviously the best person for the job, and I wish her nothing but the best. I know that she's got the backing of a lot of Hearts fans, so good luck to Shelley Kerr. But let's get to the football now. We've got games tomorrow, we've got games on Sunday, and we are going to start with the Sunday games. We're going to work backwards because Alistair's here, and he can talk about St Johnstone for half an hour. So anyway, yeah, start with the game on Sunday at 12 o'clock, the St Johnstone against Rangers. Now, St Johnstone's last game, they beat Kilmarnock 1-0 last week. Rangers coming off the back of that 4-1 win against Nice last night in Europe. Alistair, probably not the game you want now after that result last night, but how are you feeling about Sunday's game?
Well, how am I feeling about it? I'm probably feeling not quite so good as I was, a couple of days ago, because if you think about it, I think if you ask, never mind me, if you ask, Stephen, if he's on talking about Motherwell or anybody, or, Robbie talking about something, when you're playing the Old Firm after a European game, the only possible benefit is they might be a bit more tired because they've got better players. Of course they do. They've got far more money. The ideal result is not actually for Rangers to get beat or to win by a clear margin as they did. If they get beat, they're going to try much harder because the pressure will be even more on them. They've got to try and turn it around. And they're playing a team they'll expect to beat. If they won 4-0, which they did, they'll be on a high and they'll be thinking, we can do this again. You really want them to have drawn 2-2, and there'll be a lot more complaints among their fans. And so if we do get the first goal, then they'll all gripe and actually we might have a chance of getting a draw. So that's not half an hour, but that's basically my starting point. Our manager, who is really, really impressing all the fans, he's clearly made the connection and demonstrates on a daily basis when you're being interviewed. He actually played against Rangers when he was at Motherwell after they'd won similar circumstances, and in fact, it might be the end of the season, and they won 2-0. So he's making the point, of course, you can turn it around. And I've said on the show many times, our track record against Celtic and Rangers, we've got a win percentage of 15%. It's probably a bit less than that now because that's a few years ago, and that's every game we've ever played against them. So if you're a bookmaker, you're not going to be putting giving Rangers that big odds. They'll be very, very firm favourites. And like any game against the Old Firm, yourself, you've played them recently at Hearts, Graham. You're hoping that they have an off day and every one of your players plays at the top of level. And that's the way you're going to beat them. And then you get the odd bit of luck. You get the one that hits the post, that kind of thing. Or nowadays, it'll be a VAR decision that takes half an hour and all the players fall asleep. So I'm part of that's at 12 o'clock and I've got to get up early and drive all the way through there, which is a pain. I'll be quite happy if we actually put in a decent performance and I see improvement. I know that's a bit of a cop-out, but if we can actually be seen to be building to be more defensively solid than we've been, which is not difficult because, quite frankly, you could drive a coach and horses through your defence and there'll still be 5 miles each side of them. You're looking at that kind of thing. Are we actually getting better? And if we do get beat, it's not a tanking. If we manage to get a goal, get ahead, can we hold on to it? Can we actually, would you settle for a draw at that point? Most people would bite your hand off, say, yeah, let's just take the point now. Just to finish, what I would say is, never mind, if it wasn't me, if I'm looking at, say, if I'm a Ross County fan, you're looking at Celtic. So as a St Johnstone fan, I'm looking at that thinking, yeah, Ross County are one of our rivals for relegation. So they're playing Celtic. That's good. They'll lose. They'll be looking at us going, that's great. St Johnstone are playing Rangers. They'll lose. That's the way fans think. And on the day, you need luck. You need them to be playing badly, hopefully knackered by winning 4-0 and having to celebrate all those goals. And if they can get 3 players sent off as well, that'd be quite advantageous. I'd be quite happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, Reagan, we did the show last night for Rangers, a really good victory. We spoke about it last night. Obviously, Egamani scored a couple of goals. But by the time that Rangers play on Sunday, they could be 14 points behind Celtic, who play tomorrow. We talk about pressure, and I said last night, I don't think there's as much pressure on Rangers in Europe because the kind of pressure is off. But the pressure will be back on them again on Sunday if, as I expect, they go 14 points behind. It's a big, big game for Rangers. It's a big game for St Johnstone as well, but it's a massive, massive game for Rangers. If they drop more points, I mean, I think the title's pretty much over anyway. I know it's very early and Aberdeen is still in there, but certainly for Rangers, if Celtic win tomorrow and they drop more points, it's definitely done for Rangers.
I agree, and that's why I put our Rangers on the right path, because we'll see exactly on Sunday if Rangers are on the right path or whether that was a flash in the pan. Because for me, Rangers need to go and back this match-up on Thursday night. It's no good beating a French top team and then going away to St Johnson. No disrespect to Alistair, but I hope he has a good afternoon. Hope he enjoys his bovril and his pie and St Johnson win for him. But I think if Rangers are serious about trying to topple Celtic at the top of that league, Alistair, they'll be looking to get 3 points there. Because I think as well that I don't think the manager has got much leeway with the supporters. I've not really checked Twitter today, Graham, but I don't really know if that performance and showing last night has really changed many of the Rangers fans' thoughts on what should be happening with the manager. Because I think genuinely, he should be out the door.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you managed to watch the game yesterday or not, Alistair. Obviously, it's a good win for Rangers, but I actually said on the show last night, and maybe it's to be quite harsh, as much as it was a great result for Rangers, they were helped by Nice. I mean, their defending was absolutely terrible. Take nothing away from Rangers as a big result, but they were certainly helped by the fact that Nice's defending was amateur at best.
Yeah, I listened to it on the radio, I didn't watch it, and basically, obviously Nice had that first goal disallowed, and it's always what ifs and buts and all that kind of stuff. If that had scored, would Rangers have possibly felt, oh no, this is another one of those days? But the commentators on the radio, they were surprised, I think, by the fact that basically Rangers were 3 up at half time. I mean, it was like, can't you believe this? Which is a bit unfair, because on their day, again, I come back to what I said before, they've got a lot of very, very good players, and they obviously dropped Dessers, which was an interesting move. Be a bit like Hartstrop and Shanklin type of thing. He's the top scorer, well, in the past. So he's prepared to make those decisions. Rangers have got to win this if they have any chance at all, and I don't think they do, to be honest, of getting anywhere near Celtic. So not only will be pressure on them, the crowd will be on them. So again, from St Johnson's point of view, usual stuff, keep them quiet, get them turned on the players. I was talking to a Rangers fan this afternoon, and he said in his WhatsApp group, he was amazed actually that despite the fact they won 4-0, there were still people putting, negative comments, full of the kind of words that we obviously can't use before the watershed. And these are Rangers fans criticising their own team, and he's a Rangers fan. He said, I just can't believe it. Now, we know fans are fickle, but if we win 4-0 on Saturday, apart from the fact the bookies will be delighted, because they won't have to pay any money, there's going to be, even if we win 1-0, as Regan said, the pressure will then ramp up on the manager. They've got the League Cup final coming up. I listened to Ali McCoist on TalkSport. Now, he, I suspect, has got a pretty good inside line into Rangers, and he's saying they can't afford to get rid of him. So if they can't afford to get rid of him, then the pressure probably is eased to some extent on him, because he probably knows that. But on the other hand, the pressure on the players will not go away. So whether, they might lose the next game, they might beat us and then they lose the next game. That'll just, every single time they get a draw or they get beat, then it's just going to ramp up again. And the fact that Celtic are carrying on winning makes it even worse if you're a Rangers fan.
Yeah, I mean, Regan, if you look at kind of Rangers' few fixtures coming up, they do obviously have big games to come. They've got that cup final against Celtic, which I don't think many Rangers fans expect them to win. But they've also got 2 really big European games as well to come up. They've got Spurs at home, Man United away. Now, I think if you're a Rangers fan, you're actually quite happy, because you've pretty much nearly qualified. You're sitting on 10 points, you're 8th. You've got a very good chance of qualifying. Europe, Rangers have been fantastic. You can't take any away from them. But in the league, they have been so disappointing. Games that they were expected to win that they've not. The game against United last week, they were very poor. Sunday is a massive, massive game for them. Now, I don't think they win the league anyway. I said that previously. But if they go to McDermott Park and put in a performance like they did against United last week, and it's insipid and they don't win, then the pressure ramps up again on Philip Clement. Even though he'll have credit in the bank for yesterday, the pressure just ramps up because they can't afford to drop any more points in this league.
I think you're right, Graham, because as much as Rangers are 4th in the second competition in European, right? And if Rangers go 14 points behind Celtic and they draw or get beat by St Johnstone on Sunday, I think Rangers fans will be queuing outside Ibrox. I don't know if you guys seen the highlights last week, but there was hardly anybody there on last Sunday. So Rangers fans are voting with their feet, and I think that there also becomes a point. I mean, I talked to a lot of Rangers fans, and they just say to me, I don't actually want to watch the match anymore. I'm just bored watching it. Like my brother supports Rangers, right? And every time I see him, you go, "What? Are you able to watch the Rangers game today?" And I go, "No, no, I don't want to watch it." You know, and that's what every Rangers fan I speak to tells me, because every time that Rangers supporters go to watch Rangers, they're so disappointing to watch. But I think, like I said there, the manager made a big choice last night by dropping the top goal scorer and bringing in Big Amani. So I mean, I don't know if you guys agree, but I think he might bring in Big Amani on Sunday because surely he's not able to drop him. Alistair Rugby him because after scoring 2 goals in a big European match, surely you'd think he would start him in Perth on Sunday.
I absolutely certainly. Well, I'm not certain, but I would be amazed if he doesn't, because that's, not very good management to let the guy come in, have a great game, and then just say, "Sorry, mate, you're dropped." And I think we'll talk about Hearts later on, but it's a similar situation to Hearts. I tell you what, I also think it's a little bit. You talked, Graham, about them playing Man United soon. That'll be an interesting game for all sorts of reasons, but it strikes me Rangers are a bit like Man United were with Ten Hag. They've got a manager who basically says after the game the same kind of stuff. We should have scored more, etc., etc. It's all right, and it clearly wasn't. And he obviously eventually got his jotters. And the fans, in the meantime, it's a similar thing. A massive, massive club in terms of their league, obviously in terms of the world. Man United, Rangers are a massive club in terms of their league, and also, to be fair, in terms of the Scottish diaspora across the world. And they don't like being in the situation they're in, so the fans do get annoyed. And to be fair, that last weekend lots of crowds were down because of the weather. I get that, but it's very, very easy, and people talk about this all the time about fickle fans and whatever else, and how great the support is of all the big clubs. I can remember going to a game at Parkhead when Saints were playing and Celtic were really poor, and I think there was about 20,000 people there. So fans can disappear like snow off the dike if they actually are not happy with what they're seeing. That obviously has ramifications in all sorts of ways. If the club got their season ticket money, they're probably not that bothered. But for the players, it doesn't look good. And the ones who are left are probably the diehards who are going to get more ratty with them if they're not playing well. So it's very easy to see how this is going to get more difficult. I think the one thing, going back to the Ten Hag thing, is that let's say Rangers beat Celtic in the League Cup final. Now, most people think that won't happen, but most people didn't think Man United would beat Man City.
Mm-hmm.
And they did. All of a sudden, the dynamic changes, because for Rangers fans, that's, holy grail is beating Celtic, especially in finals. And all of a sudden, I suspect they'd get a huge fill-up. Now, it's unlikely, but it's not impossible. So, what I'm basically trying to say is there is a long way to go. I know that's a cliche, but 1 or 2 games can change your season. And that potentially could, much more so than the game against us. If they could beat Celtic in that League Cup final, I think you'd find their season would change. Now, I don't think they'll win the league because they're too far behind, but the psychology of it would change.
And I think also, Graham, the point I want to make as well is I don't think this Rangers team fill you with any great belief that they're going to go on a 10-match streak where they can win 10 matches. I just feel like they're going to be that kind of Jekyll and Hyde. And that's the kind of thing that you're seeing for Rangers. And I think the important thing for them on Sunday, we'll get to, is I think there's a genuine possibility that Aberdeen drop more points at Tynecastle on Sunday. I know it's a match you're going to, but I genuinely think that possibly Aberdeen could draw points. And Rangers need to try and make sure they get all 3 points, so that if Aberdeen draw points, then it's only a 5-point deficit.
I mean, if we look at St Johnstone, Alistair, I mean, they're sitting 9th, 13 points. It's been a up and down season, but I said it last week and I've said it previously as well. I said it to Michael and Reagan. I really like Valacari. There's definitely improvement in terms of the way that St Johnstone play, but it would be hard on the Craig Levein, who was very defensive. But he's trying to get a more attacking team, and you can see that the style of football has definitely changed. Of course, results have got to change as well. You got a result last week, kept a clean sheet. Mackenzie Kirk, who I'm a big fan of, as you know, scored the goal. As much as it's a big game for Rangers, it's a big game for St Johnstone as well. You know, they're going at this with confidence at home against a Rangers side that in the league are struggling. St Johnstone fans surely will be looking at this thinking, under Valacari, this is a game that we feel confident about. Maybe not under Levein, but under Valacari, with the style of football you're playing, it surely has to give you confidence you can actually get something out of this.
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of putting on the same record again under Levein, I'd have had absolutely no confidence whatsoever. Because the football was defensive and boring and was trying to play long balls over the top for the two speed merchants up front. And once every 10 games, that resulted in a goal. We've got two players who've scored 5 goals. We've got Nicky Clark and we've got Kimpioka. Sidibe hasn't really fired. He scored 2 this season, but there's a player in there, you know? Sorry.
There's more than Shankland has. Can we sign them, please?
Well, you did have Mackenzie Kirk, who I think will score a reasonable number of goals this year. And I think he'll probably, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts again, because, again, what I'm hearing is that the manager's impressed by him in training. I think they're looking at another right back, apparently, because, again, we've got problems there. The manager's identified the problem is the defence. We know that. The midfield, you've got Graham Carey in your team, and you're a sort of middle-of-the-table team, in Scottish Premiership. You need 1 or 2 players like Graham Carey, somebody who's got the skill and the vision and all that kind of stuff, and can put the ball exactly where he wants. And then you've got Nicky Clark. Now, he's made Nicky Clark the captain. That was a very sensible move. Nicky Clark's playing slightly withdrawn, but he's still got that predatory instinct to get in the box. He is the best header of the ball of all our forwards. To be fair, I don't know Mackenzie Kirk's like in there. He's sufficiently tall, but Clark is exceptional there for his height. So if you can get the ball to these guys, there's a chance you'll score, but a lot of it will depend on how the game goes. The last thing you want is to lose a goal early on, because that obviously gives Rangers a huge boost.
Who for you, Alistair, if St Johnstone are to win, who's got to play brilliant? Obviously, you've got to keep the ball in the end, but is there somebody in midfield or up top that's going to play well for St Johnstone to win?
Well, the referee would be a good start. I don't know the referee is, to be honest. Who's going to play well? I tell you who's got to play well. I think Jack Sanders has got to play well, because he's actually been picked alongside Bozo, the guy's surname I can't pronounce. Nobody can pronounce it apart from the manager. So everyone calls him Bozo. And he is a man mountain. And I think he was one of the reasons why we got a clean sheet last week. The goalkeeper had 1 or 2 ricks, but there's a goalkeeper in there. He's a young lad. He's only 23. I think it's the central defence. And Sanders, who was it, let's be honest, was a Kilmarnock reject, played well against Kilmarnock. I think he's important, because if he can actually come on, carry and be in a game, he's keeping out people like, the boy Nielsen from Hearts, who's a good player. He was brought on at right back to shore up the defence at the end of the game against Kilmarnock. That's the kind of options he's got. So, I obviously, one of the strikers or somebody else has got to put the ball in the net if we're going to have any chance. But the defence is the critical bit, and that's why I would say that Sanders, Bozo, Trey Wright as well if he's playing right wing back. But the central defence is where hopefully we can actually hold out.
Reagan, at the start of the season, we were asked to do a prediction for who's going to win the league, which is pretty simple, and who's going to get relegated. And I think pretty much everybody on the show says St Johnstone are going to go down. Now, I think if they had Levein in charge, that might have happened. But since Valacari's come in, they're a very different side. They're actually quite a good side to watch. I watched them against Hearts a couple of weeks ago, and they played some really good stuff. And they do have players that can cause problems. They've got like Sidibe, they've got Kimpioka, they've got Clark, they've got Clark. They can cause problems. I think St Johnstone are actually going to be all right this season, the way they're playing. And you have to give massive credit to Valacari, to the fact that he's come in, he's not got a great squad, but he's getting something out of them that Craig Levein let's be honest, just simply didn't do.
No, I think what Craig Levein brought was negativity through the St Johnstone support. You can hear what Alistair was saying there. He didn't particularly enjoy it. So, no, I think Valakari brought an enthusiasm to the support.
Yeah.
He brought kind of the St Johnstone fans are going to the match and they're looking forward to it. Obviously, the match last week, that was a match last season that you would think, well, I think Derek McInnes will go up there and get the 3 points for his team. But St Johnstone have been a great, they've made a great start under the brand new manager, and I think it just shows you that sometimes when you go for that different name, it can work in Scottish football. Because many times I said to you that it's so important that we don't go that Scottish clubs don't go around for the same names like Jack Ross, Stephen Robinson, Stephen Presley, Paul Hatley, all of these kind of guys. I'm sick of seeing the same names. I want to see some freshness, and I'm glad he's doing very well.
Alistair, I know that obviously managers' comments mean very little, but I think it's the way you come. I think it's the way you come across at times, and we all know Craig Levein is quite a dour character at times. But you look at Valakari before a game and after a game, he's kind of he's more upbeat, he's more confident. He seems to believe what he said about like playing attacking football, and it does come across. So I think sometimes it's not what a manager says, it's how they say it that comes across. And I think if I'm a St Johnstone fan, I'm a lot more confident with that than I was with what Levein was saying.
Yeah, I mean, when we did the pre-season predictions, I think I said we'd get relegated, although I said I hope we wouldn't. I still think we're going to be pretty tight. I think it's going to be quite difficult. I tell you one thing Valakari's done, which I learned about the other day, which you may or may not know about, and it's a very, very unusual thing for a football club at that level. He was asked by the chief exec, who again is new, would he mind if the players actually had their lunch alongside all the rest of the staff? And he said, yeah, why not? So now the players are actually having their lunch with all the guys who work up the stairs, the admin team, all that kind of stuff, the receptionist, maybe not the cook because they're cooking it. That to my mind is, and okay, it's come from the chief exec. And that, again, I think it's come probably from the American owner who's got that kind of attitude. I don't know many other clubs that do that. And I suspect most of the previous managers would have said, on your bike. But that's showing, I think, how you actually bring together a degree of not just team spirit, but spirit throughout the whole club. And that, I think, is a reflection of the man that his first reaction was, yeah, why not? Let's go and do it. Let's go and try and do something different. Let's go and get more esprit de corps, if I can put it like that, through the club. I thought that was a great thing. And you can see it in the players. Again, that what you're picking up round the back door is that the players are much happier now than they were, because they particularly, the one player who stands out is Sven Sprangler, who Levein just simply wouldn't pick him. And he's been our best player probably most weeks since he's got back in the team. And that's the difference, is you've got players who are actually motivated and want to play. And that applies to any club, not just my club.
Me and Graham spoke about it before. But see, when you've got a new manager and the players have got to spring in a step, hopefully that'll bring more people into the stadium. See the people that you're talking to, are they hoping that more people will go along and enjoy the football?
Yeah, I mean, Adam Webb, the new owner, now he's obviously ill, poor man, but one of his stated ambitions was to actually put another 1,000 on the crowd. Now, that depends entirely on how you're doing in the league, obviously. And Perth's got a population of 45,000, so it's not a huge place. It's about the same as Kilmarnock, maybe a tiny bit smaller. So you would kind of hope that potential is there if you can get the team playing attractive football. And I go back to the point Graham made there. The style of football is much better. We're now actually having more possession than the opposition. It's extraordinary. It's not something, even under Tommy Wright, who was by far the best manager we've had in our history. Not by far, but by a bit. We played a different style of football. Now we're actually playing football you want to watch. And if I can go off a wee tangent again, I heard Postecoglou on the radio talking about, basically, he wasn't bothered about playing pragmatic football. He wanted to entertain people. And I actually think he could be the saviour of English football if he keeps his job, because we're seeing Man City and the tiki-taka stuff actually not working now as the players fade away. I would much rather go and watch a team where they're going out to try and attack and try and win by scoring more goals than by, dare I say it, Craig Levein style, not losing any. And I suspect everybody watching this show just now would agree with me.
I mean, Pep's just been spooked by Arne Slot, who's had a great start for Liverpool. I had to get that dig into it. Other fan that's watching this that doesn't support Liverpool. But yeah, I mean, it's funny you mentioned the thing about like the players having lunch together, because I remember years and years ago, and again, this is a Vladimir Orlov thing, but a player had come out and actually said that like he would go into the dining room and there'd be Scottish players on one side and foreign players on the other side, and they wouldn't eat together. But then again, we had about 80 players, but that's not a shock. But I think at times it is actually quite good to have that kind of where everyone's together, you know, they're all in it together, whereas a lot of clubs maybe don't get that. So I think the fact that Valakari's brought that in and St Johnstone have got that's a really good thing, because it gives that team, you know, it gives them identity, it gives them that kind of the team that eats together wins together, that kind of thing. Probably a lot of clubs don't do that, but it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And not only that, but they're sitting with the people who actually pay their wages, you know, the people who make sure that their money's in their bank accounts. They're sitting with the people who actually organise the tickets so that the fans can come and watch them, you know. And that, to my mind, is, you think about it, if it wasn't football, it was any other company, you'd want to put all that together. Okay, you've got separate departments and they obviously, you know, socialise as departments, but you still want to bring the whole thing together. So
yeah. And I just want to ask you in terms of St Johnstone and Sunday, is it obviously during the lockdown St Johnstone got the better Rangers twice, but is this the most self-belief you've had since then that you can go and get a result?
I think, I mean, knowing my mates who, you know, go to the game with, and you know, the people I sit next to, and you know, all that kind of stuff, most of them will be going expecting that the chances are we'll get beat, because statistically that's what's most likely to happen. But if I go back to the point Gray made earlier, if we had Levine as the manager, we'd be going there basically expecting us to dig in, try and defend, and trying to hit them on the break with long balls, hoping for Kimpioka or Sidibe to get on the end of. That is terrible to watch. And that was one of the things, I think, I mean, Adam Webb acted fairly decisively and quite quickly with Levine to remove him, and that made a huge difference. So I'm conscious we're talking about St Johnstone a lot just now, but I think what I'm saying applies to most other teams in our situation, whether it's Motherwell, Kilmarnock, Hibs, or maybe it's exactly the same. You know, there's a whole lot of good players there, but you've somehow or other got to try and bring together that team spirit, because without it, the place folds. And we've seen it ourselves when the heads, and people talk about the heads going down. If you're playing in a game and you're 3-0 down, if the players' heads go down, you can end up 6-0. If they don't, it might be 4-0, but at least you've got that willingness to fight to the end. You know?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it probably is the most confident, because if you look at it as well, this Rangers team's not in great shakes as well. So you must be fancying your chances.
On the grounds that if I say I'm fancying my chances, we'll get beat 4-0. I'm not prepared to take that risk. I tell you something, Regan. I remember years and years and years ago, we were playing Rangers. I can't remember who was on the Rangers team at that time, and they'd had a whole load of injuries. And I remember going to the game thinking, "This is great. We've got a brilliant chance to actually beat Rangers for once, because they've got so many players out." And we got beat, I think, 2-1 or 2-0. And of course, all the guys that came in, because they were getting a chance to play for the Rangers first team, where they would never have got it normally, they absolutely stepped up to mark. They wanted to impress the manager. I think it might have been Dick Advocat's day. It was a long time ago. And they played brilliantly, and there was no way we were going to beat them, which is why I was saying before, you actually kind of hope that if they'd actually drawn the game in midweek, it would have been carrying on from where they were, whereas just now they'll be a bit more buoyant. So we'll wait and see. I'm quite glad I'm not doing the Sunday show, let's put it like that.
Well, let's get a prediction for Sunday. Let's start with Alistair, because it's your team. St Johnstone against Rangers. What's your prediction?
Well, it's a bit like in the days when I'm not a gambler, but occasionally you go to hospitality and the bookies would be there. I could never bet money on St Johnstone losing, so I'm not prepared to say we're going to lose. I would settle for any kind of draw. I would settle for a 3-3 draw, because there'd be a lot of entertainment. A bit like the Aberdeen Hibs game. That would be brilliant. But I would bite your hand off for a draw now.
Regan?
I'll go 2-1 to Rangers. 2-1.
I'm going to go, and not because Alice is on, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win for St Johnstone. I'm going to go different. I'm going to go Mackenzie Kirk to get the winner. There you go. That's how bold I'm going.
I always like you, Graham. Always like you.
Thank you. Well, we're positive about Hearts because I'm certainly not going to be. But anyway, let's move on to the next Sunday game that I will be attending at Tynecastle with my laddie. Hearts against Aberdeen, 3 o'clock kickoff on Sunday. And I generally don't know what to think about this game. Obviously, Hearts were beaten 2-0 by Bruges yesterday. We did the show last night, and I was very frustrated. I'm going to start with you first, Regan. So going into this game, Hearts are sitting second bottom, a point ahead of Hibs. Hibs play tomorrow, of course. If they win, they go above us. But in terms of Hearts, it's a massive, massive game. Now, there was a Hearts podcast a couple of days ago that asked the question, what's the bigger game, yesterday or Sunday? And I said Sunday. We need to climb the league. Europe's a bonus. But the big question, and I'll ask Alison this as well, the big question is all about Lawrence Shankland. Now, he missed the penalty yesterday. He should never have taken it. If you're Neil Critchley, Regan, for Sunday, the big question that is on a lot of Hearts fans' minds, do you drop Lawrence Shankland for Sunday?
I don't think you drop him because the simple answer is there's no one there to replace him. I mean, I don't watch Hearts. I don't watch Hearts that often, but you tell me that Boyce is not playing well either. So I just don't think you can drop Shankland in a big match against Aberdeen. I think is once he scores one goal, then he will get it back. But then to play devil's advocate on my own point there, he had the perfect opportunity last night and he skied it right over the bar, and it was just like, I don't know, it just looked as if he was flabbergasted. It looked as if he just didn't. He didn't want to be on that path. There was like no emotion from him. And I think that's where, for me, Graham, you see when there's no emotion from a player, that's when there needs to be, so someone else needs to step in and go, right, I'll take this penalty because there's a genuine chance that we could win this game.
Yeah, Alistair, I kind of said, like, I was watching the game with my laddie last night, and when Shankland got the penalty, I actually said to him, he's going to miss this. I was not confident he was going to score. And obviously, he puts it over the bar, and the fans that were there were obviously gutted. But it's a real difficult question because I love Shankland for what he's done for Hearts. He's the best striker I've seen at Hearts for a long, long time, since John Robertson. But when you've got a player that's not on form, you need to take him out the firing line. And that game yesterday was the game that Hearts should have got something out of. We had numerous chances, but didn't take them. But the big question around Hearts, like I said to Regan there, and it's about Shankland. What do we do with him? Do we drop him? Do we play Musa, who scored last week against Celtic? Do you play James Wilson? How does Critchley deal with this? Because when you've got a player that is not on form and it's having a massive effect on the team, do you take him out or do you persist them? Because there's the captain, which I think, again, might be a bad thing as well. What do you do with him? Do you take him out of the situation or do you keep persisting with him in the hope that something might change?
I think well, in my view, you take him out because he is the captain. Okay, that makes for a difficult situation. We had Kyle Cameron as our captain. It was taken off him, given to Nicky Clark. And that was the right thing to do. So it's doing the right thing for the team. I think he would benefit from being out of the team. We dropped Sidibe against Kilmarnock because although he was a top scorer last year, he's not been firing. And actually, he came on as a sub and he looked really good. And he had, maybe had a chance. So I actually think if you take him out of the firing line, and I take Regan's point about who do you replace him, well, the boy Musa, that was an absolutely stunning goal against Celtic.
It was, yeah.
Absolutely stunning goal. And again, you'll know much better than we do, Graham, because you follow them. But my understanding from what I've read and listened to on the radio is that he's a bit hit or miss, but he clearly has got a goal in him if he can do that kind of thing. And Aberdeen are not, they're still going to finish probably second or third. Well, definitely second or third. But they're not imposing themselves as much as they were. I mean, the game against Hibs, once they got that one in the last, what seemed like the last kick of the game, and then they immediately go and lose another one, that'll be in their minds as well. So this is a really interesting game, I think. Much more so probably than our game, because most people expect us to lose. Whereas Hearts v Aberdeen, with Aberdeen just losing it a wee bit, I think it's going to be fascinating to see how it pans out. But in answer to your question, yes, I would drop Shankland.
It's funny because Moussa Dramé has had 3 sub-appearances this season. 2 against Celtic, 1 against Rangers. He's never featured against anybody else. He wasn't playing yesterday because he wasn't involved in the European squad. But, Reagan, I look at Hearts this season, and I put this out on X earlier on today. In all competitions this season, Hearts have played 21 games. We've scored 19 goals. We've conceded 33. We've only kept 3 clean sheets. Now, yes, scoring goals is a massive issue, but defensively, we are also nowhere near the level we should be. Conceding 33 goals is not just a Lawrence Shankland thing. It's the whole squad. The goals we're losing, you look at the goals we lost last night. The first goal, the guy mishits it, it goes in. The second goal's a deflection. But I don't blame Critchley. Like, Critchley's not been here that long. I talk about Valkyrie at St Johnstone. I've actually enjoyed watching us under Critchley. Performance has been better, but we're not winning games. And that's the big thing. Now, again, I'm on a lot of different social media sites, and a couple of Hearts fans said to me last night that they're losing patience for Critchley. How can you blame Critchley for this? This is not on him. It's not his squad. We're going to a big game on Sunday. I am still of the belief, maybe I'm being biased about this, Reagan, but I'm still of the belief that Hearts have got a good enough squad to get at this situation. But we've got a run of games that we've got Aberdeen at home, we've got Dundee and St Johnstone, I think, both at home as well. Winnable games, but the tide's got to turn at some point. It has to.
I think it has, Graham, but I want to ask you a question as well. Do you think that they're in the same kind of cycle that Celtic were during COVID, in terms of too many players have been there too long? Because you look at some of the players that are still there, like, I think they've maybe been there 2 or 3 seasons too long.
Yeah, I kind of made this point last night. When you're chasing a game and you're bringing on, and I don't want to disrespect these guys because they've done a good job, but you're bringing on Barry Mackay and Liam Boyce as your options, that's not good enough. And this is where I really feel sorry for Critchley. Now, I know that Michael made the point last night about the fact that Stephen Naismith, the ex-Hearts manager, was doing the commentary. I had no issue with that. Absolutely no issue with that at all. And to be honest, the squad that he left us is not a bad squad. But what he did do, he didn't bring another striker in the summer, which is a massive mistake. There's no pace in that team, as showed last night. But I think there are players there that will not be here in January. Liam Boyce, Barry Mackay, George Grant, all on the bench last night. They'll be gone in January. And it looks like to me, having watched a lot of games this season, of course, it looks like to me that Neil Critchley has already decided on players that he can trust and players that he can't. Now, there's a few players falling into that category, Reagan, but looking at last night, again, it's another game that Hearts have played not that badly, but we've lost.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, Graham, you'd rather they played rubbish and won the match. I mean, I watched that match last night. I don't know if you watched that, Alistair, but I mean, Hearts were the better team throughout the match. Sure, England missed a chance. I don't know how he missed it, Graham, in the first half. Should have scored. It was open there for me. I think the actual Bruges shot stopper actually thought the ball was in the net, but it just was by. But I just feel like if you look back to even June and July, Graham, I think the squad's got too much, too many of the same players. They've not got any balance in the squad.
No, I completely agree. I mean, the team that he picked last night was pretty much close to what I thought it might be. But Alistair, the thing that I was going to say as well, I don't know if you watched the game yesterday. There was a moment in the first half where Craig Gordon throws the ball out to Jan Dyer, basically just about on the centre circle. It's a great throw. And we've got a chance to break 4-on-2. But because Shankland's not quick enough, he goes back the way. And within 3 passes, we're back at Craig Gordon again. And this is a frustration that I've got. There is no pace in that team, which Michael Stewart seems to repeat constantly. But he is right, because I've said this numerous times. There is no pace in that team, and we can't break. And again, coming back to the Shanklin point, it's difficult because he's the captain, he's a designated penalty taker. But if I'm a player that's not on form, I'd have more respect for him. I said this to Reagan last night and Michael as well. I'd have more respect for Shankland if he got the penalty last night and said, you know what, I don't feel confident in my own head to take this and give it to somebody else. But he didn't. And what really frustrated me as well is he tried to go top corner. Just put the laces through it and smash it. But he tries to go top corner and misses. And the reaction of Hearts fans last night, I will say, was disappointing. A lot of Hearts fans were not happy. They basically said, Shankland, blah, blah, blah. I don't agree with that at all because he's done very well over the course of 2 seasons. But his form is massively frustrating. And my worry is, Alistair, that on Sunday, and this is really daft to say this because of what he's done for Hearts, but if his name is read out in that team sheet on Sunday, the fans are going to go crazy because they're not happy right now.
Yeah, that's why I said I would drop him and take him out, as you, in your phrase, take him out of the firing line, because that the first exposure to that firing line is actually when the team's announced. And there will be some people who will boo, I'm quite sure. And what's that going to do for the guy's confidence? He's had 2 stunning seasons. He's clearly not having a good season just now. That's why I think he needs to come out the firing line. It really is as simple as that. Because as I've said before, we've not talked about Aberdeen yet, but Aberdeen are clearly a very, very good team. They're totally changed from last season. But there'll be wee sprigs of doubt in their mind. They couldn't put away Hibs, who are bottom of the table. Hearts will climb the table. They've got too many good players not to do that. Hibs slightly different. Their circumstances are a wee bit worse, but that's what can happen to any club, any team once they get that sort of negative vibe going through them.
Yep.
I really think that Shankland not playing, he could come on as a sub. That all of a sudden that gives him this huge impetus. I'm going to go and show them, or whatever. But if he starts the game, I think you've very sagely pointed out the fans will not take kindly to his name being read out, and that just puts the poor guy straight back in his box, and he'll be like, "Do I want to go out there?"
I mean, before I touch on Aberdeen, because I'm making this sound like a Hearts podcast, which I'm not meant to do, but I'm hosting, so it is my show. Anyway, but we're making this sound like a Hearts podcast, Reagan. Again, a lot of Hearts fans are very fickle. Shankland's been great for 2 seasons. He's now getting a lot of stick. And the one thing that I kind of don't understand, a lot of Hearts fans say he doesn't care, he doesn't want to be here. I don't get that from what I've seen recently. Performances overall been all right. He's just not getting that look in front of goal. Do you think, watching him as a neutral, do you think that Shankland is someone that looks like he doesn't care and doesn't want to be there? What's your vibe about Shankland just now watching him?
No, I don't think that he doesn't want to be there. I just think sometimes in life, in general, everybody goes through times where they're just kind of not at it. I go through times in life where I'm not at it. I'm sure you do, Graham. And like, it affects your place of work. And see, when he's no scoring, that's what he enjoys. He goes to training every single morning, I'm sure, at the back of 9 in the morning, and he goes, I'm going to go and score today. He's not done that since Scotland qualified for the Euros when he was going to Germany. He's not scored. And, like, this is the problem that people need to speak about as well. I'm sure everybody is around him at the moment. But see, as soon as he scores again, it'll be such a big relief for him to score and get that feeling. But I just want to go back on that point that you said about the Hearts fans last night in Belgium, saying that to him. I mean, he was the first striker since John Robertson to score 30 plus goals in a season for Hearts. I just sometimes don't understand football, but it just shows you in the space of like 4 or 5 months, like how things can change. I mean, I remember in June time when he was going to the PFA Awards, they're talking about, oh, we're looking forward to going to Germany, and the fact that you're the first Hearts player to score 30 odd goals since John Robertson. These are stats that people enjoyed last year, and then only 5 or 6 months later, things have completely changed. And that just shows you that sometimes how fickle and quick life can go.
Before we move on to Aberdeen, trust me, Aberdeen fans, I am getting there, but just one final point on Hearts. Alistair, like I said, a lot of Hearts fans, or some of them anyway, are turning on Neil Critchley. But like I said, this is not his squad. I've seen a lot of positive performances from Neil Critchley. He needs a lot more time, and he needs at least a few transfer windows to get this sorted. Again, it goes back to the point I've made numerous times. Do managers get enough time? This, for me, is not on Critchley. This is, and I suppose it's the same with Philip Clement as well. It's not just always on the manager, it's players as well. They've got to step up and do more than they're doing.
Well, the short answer to your question is there is no way to get rid of Critchley. From what I've seen of Hearts, obviously I don't see them as much as you do, but from what I've seen and read and listened to and watched, they're a better team than they were under Naismith. They're playing better football, there's a degree more confidence. I think there's a parallel with the Shankland situation and the fact that people are saying, oh, you got to get rid of him. I talked about Postecoglou at Spurs earlier on. I mean, TalkSport constantly, whenever Spurs have a bad result, should Postecoglou go? And they get fans on, and the media, because it's much more 24 hours nowadays, they're constantly looking for this kind of stuff. And I think, at the risk of sounding like a very boring, old, unfortunate expulsion of wind, it's the case that people are much more intolerant nowadays. And this is partly a social media thing. People actually are not prepared to wait for results. They want something, they want it now, so they want to actually have results, because you know what? We're Hearts. We shouldn't be getting, second bottom of the table. We should be beating these diddy teams, Now, that's not just Hearts. It applies to everybody. I mean, Aberdeen, the same. They're another big club in Scottish terms. So if they're not playing well, the fans don't like it. And I talked about the crowd at Celtic at a game way back in the day. All fans are like that. When their team's doing well, it's great. But actually, nowadays, it's got, in my view, it's got a lot worse. So that you've got people shouting to the manager's head. The guy's hardly, he's just in the door. They're playing better. That's the difference. Give the guy a break, because you're not going to finish bottom of the table. You're not going to finish second bottom of the table. They've got too many good players, so they're going to be higher up the league. And accept that this season is going to be a write-off in terms of second or third. That is the sensible thing. One thing Jeff Brown did that was really good is he very rarely fired managers on a whim, because the fans were shouting that. In fact, the fans were shouting, get rid of the manager. He was probably stick his heels in and go, no. And that actually, by and large, worked out pretty well. And I come back to the point I made on the show before. There's actually a relatively few good managers. There's an awful lot of average ones. And by taking what is maybe a risk by bringing in Critchley, not any great experience, same way with Valakari, as opposed to getting in the Stephen Presleys, the John Hughes and all that kind of stuff, you have a chance to create a different kind of dynamic around the club. And I think he'll do it. But I think he has to drop Shankland. I think he's got to do that. Whether he will or not, we'll find out, on the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, Shankland's not on my starting lineup for Saturday on Sunday, but let's move on to Aberdeen, Reagan, before I get accused of being biased towards Hearts. But anyway, let's move on to Aberdeen. So the last two results, a defeat to Aberdeen at St Mirren last week, a draw with Hibs on Wednesday. The question that has been asked, has Aberdeen's bubble burst? I'm not sure. It's been two poor results. They've had a fantastic season. But again, it's a big game for Hearts on Sunday, Reagan. It's a big game for Aberdeen as well. And the record at Tynecastle is not good. They've not won at Tynecastle since 2017.
Yeah, and I think the player to score then was Johnny Hayes and Niall McGinn, I think. So I think, Graham, you made a lot of good points here. I think Aberdeen, in fact, I watched the full 90 minutes at Easter Road on Tuesday night, and I felt like Aberdeen were probably the better team. And I thought when they scored in 90 plus 4 minutes, that was the game finished. But fair play to him for coming back. But I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen the highlights. But I mean, that goal that Aberdeen thought they'd won the game, the overhead kick. What a goal, game.
Oh, it was stunning. It was a fantastic goal. But I mean, we talk about Hibsing it, Alistair. Aberdeen's it on Wednesday, because when they go 3-2 up, I think everyone's thinking that's the game done. But like Reagan said, fair play to Hibs. But that's Aberdeen now. They've taken 1 point for the last two games after such a great start. Do you know, obviously coming to Tynecastle, hopefully a difficult game. But I do think you have to give massive credit to Jimmy Thielen for the job that he's done this season. They've had a great run. They're sitting 2 points behind Celtic. They've had a fantastic season, even with the last 2 games not quite going their way.
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't looked this up, but echoing what you said earlier on, Graham, I suspect off the top of my head they've maybe dropped 6 points in the league. Would that be about right? Something like that. If you said an Aberdeen fan, bear in mind where they were last season, by this stage in the season, after about 13, 14 games, you're going to have only dropped 6 points. They'd have been, I didn't believe that. Except they've said it in the Doric, obviously, rather than the way I said it. And I think most Aberdeen fans will be really pleased. Again, I come back to this sort of short-termism. Aberdeen have dropped, they got beat, and then they dropped a point when they shouldn't have, against Hibs, the bottom team in the league. That means the world's coming to an end tomorrow. No, it doesn't. It means that they've had a couple of games where it didn't go for them. And yes, and I had the radio on, and Willie Miller was on, and obviously Willie Miller gets really upset by any kind of bad defending, right? Especially if it's Aberdeen. He was not a happy bunny. But what was more instructive was Michael Stewart, who was, I think it was Michael Stewart, who was talking about. He was basically, after that spectacular, what we thought was the winner, Michael Stewart, who'd gone up and down in relation to David Gray throughout the whole game about, oh yeah, they're playing a bit better now, all that kind of stuff, and oh no, that's they've got to look at this Hibs. This is really not going to work. And then of course they get the equaliser, and he's got to change his tune yet again, poor guy, because and so at the end of it, the vibe was basically, oh, maybe Hibs are actually, this is maybe a turning point for Hibs. And in the same way, I don't think it's a turning point for Aberdeen. I'm not convinced it's a turning point for Hibs, because they've got a really hard game as well on Saturday. And I know we'll come on to that later on. So I think that I have a feeling that Hearts might actually win this one, because just again, statistically, they've not done that well this season. They've got good enough players. I can actually see them winning it, but it'll be very, very tight.
And that's why we ask Alistair back on these shows all the time for these thoughts like that. Only because I really think they're going to beat Rangers. So, but good evening to Dave, Deadpool McKay. What a name that. I like listening to these shows. Don't tell Michael, though. Just keep that between us, that we only do these shows when Michael's not here. So, yeah, thank you, Dave, Deadpool McKay. And by the way, I actually did watch the new Deadpool Wolverine movie. Very, very good. Like those movies. Fantastic movie. Even my laddie, he liked it as well. Probably shouldn't have done, but never mind. But anyway, yeah, I mean, looking at Aberdeen, Reagan, they have had a good season overall. The fact that they sold their top goal scorer, Majowski, who's doing well at Girona. They've obviously had Papa Gay out, who's been injured for a while now, but they do have players in that squad that be very impressive. And I have to touch on Jamie McGrath. I think for me this season, he has really stepped up a level. He's been excellent this season.
Yeah, he's been brilliant, Graham. He's been really good. And he's been a big part of why Jeremy's done really well. And I think in terms of that, you really need players in your squad. Okay, the manager's brought in players, but you really need players that know Scottish football, and he's really stepped up this year. Because I remember like two seasons ago, he was playing at Dundee United, and people were going, "Oh well, maybe he's lost it." But he's stepped up at Aberdeen this season. He's done very well. I remember a pass he did at Celtic Park where Aberdeen really got in behind the Celtic back four. So I think in terms of Aberdeen, he's been really pivotal to their success. And I think another guy that's been really pivotal to Aberdeen's success, even though he's not starting many games, is Jayden Morris, Graham.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Good evening to Aviation, my good friend on YouTube. Oh, you're well, pal. Yeah, I think Jayden Morris has been excellent. And you look at, I mean, I suppose for you, Alistair, it'll be a bit of a disappointment you've not got Meathoff anymore. But again, I said at the start of the season, I think Meathoff is a fantastic centre for Aberdeen. He's such a quality goalkeeper. He's had to be this season. He's pulled off some great saves. And I don't think folk realise how big it is having a really good goalkeeper. But Meathoff, for me, again, this season has been outstanding for Aberdeen.
He is. Depending on your point of view, he's certainly the top three in Scotland. You could argue the relative merits of them. He's not at the end of his career. He's obviously the Bulgarian international keeper. The thing that strikes me about Meathoff, I don't know if you're at the very first game, Hearts came to McDermott last season when we got beat 2-0. And there was a moment, I don't know who it was, one of the Hearts players was clean through about the edge of the box and he hit a really good shot and we just thought goal. And he just flung an arm out and we're like, wow, how did he save that? And then
that was Kiyosuke Tagawa, who's now no longer with us. He's away.
Okay, right. Well, maybe that's why. But I mean, but he did that all season. And the difference is, if you watch him compared with, no disrespect to Josh Ray, well, probably a little bit, but if you watch Mitov when he's actually making a save, when he's at full stretch, he's obviously a very, very powerful guy because he knocks the ball miles away from the danger area. He commands his box. He comes out. He takes the ball, which, you know, a lot of goalkeepers don't do. He's very, very confident under the cross ball, and he's a brilliant shot stopper. So once you've got the goalkeeper right, it's a bit like you go back to when Rangers were rebuilt and they brought in all English players. They brought in the England international keeper, the boy Chris Woods, fabulous keeper. Aberdeen have got, okay, not the England, but the Bulgarian international keeper, fabulous keeper. That he will get them points this season. He, by and large, was one of the main reasons we stayed up last year. In fact, the save against Motherwell, the last game of the season, the penalty save was probably crucial in that. So you look at it and you think, yeah, that's a very good building block. And then the rest of their team, compared to last season, and I echo Regan's point, McGrath's been brilliant. Really, really good. And I think he obviously lost his way a wee bit, I think, down south, but when you saw him as a young player, everyone said this is going to be a great player. And they've got other ones, they've got other ones as well who can come in and make a difference. I think they're going to be top three. It's a question of whether Rangers get their act together or not. If Rangers carry on as they are, then Aberdeen will be second. But I have a feeling that Hearts might well win tomorrow, as I said. I just think Hearts can't carry on, and they'll have one of these days when it all comes together. And if they get ahead, then maybe a wee bit of nerves will creep into Aberdeen's performance.
Regan, for the last few weeks, the media on BBC Scotland and pretty much every other media broadcast has loved the fact that there looks like a title race. Celtic, assuming they win tomorrow, which I think they will go 5 points clear of Aberdeen before Aberdeen play on Sunday. Do you still think there is a title race, or do you think, like I have said for the last few weeks, that Celtic will just end up running away with this by about 20 odd points, maybe even more?
I think you're spot on, Graham, because as much as I would like there to be a title race, Graham, don't think there will be. If Aberdeen really thought there was a title race, I think we're going away to Hibs on Tuesday night. That's a game you have to win. That's a game that Celtic and Rangers would both win. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Graham, Aberdeen play Celtic on Wednesday night.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
So Aberdeen could be potentially 8 points behind Celtic if Aberdeen don't beat Hearts on Sunday. So, no, I think the title race could be done by this time next week.
Yeah, I mean, Alistair, I genuinely think, obviously, the big story of the season has obviously been Rangers, how bad they've been, but Aberdeen have been a massive, massive story. And like I said, the media have latched onto that, as they will do, because everybody loves a title race. There's not been one for a while. But this is the issue that I've always said about the Premier League, is that apart from Celtic, and at times Rangers as well, every other team can take points of each other. It was going to be very difficult for Aberdeen to sustain this. And this is a thing that you can't do. Celtic, even if they're not winning, you look at last week against Hearts, first half, not great, second half blew us away. But Aberdeen dropping points against St Mirren, dropping points against Hibs. If you're in a title race, you can't afford to do that. And Aberdeen may win on Sunday, but I still believe that Celtic, with the quality, will win this league by quite a margin. And as Regan said there, Aberdeen Celtic on Wednesday, I think this title race will be done by maybe even early New Year. Now, like I said, massive respect to Aberdeen. I think Jimmy Thiel's come in and done a great, great job. But there's no way that anyone else can sustain this.
No, I mean, I don't know the arithmetic, but there'll come a stage at which, as we say, it's mathematically impossible for anybody else to win the league. And it's going to be pretty soon. Again, I made the point, I'm not really a gambler, but I've got friends who are, and I would not be surprised if there's some bookies who've paid out on Celtic already. Because
I think Paddy Power did early on, is that right? Sure, Paddy Power did.
I wouldn't be surprised, and the bookies tend not to get it wrong. So I've said before on this show, that's not good for Scottish football. It's great if you're a Celtic fan, obviously, but it's not good for Scottish football. if you look, when was the last time we really had a title race that involved more than two clubs? Can't think of one, to be honest, off the top of my head. Maybe the 80s, Aberdeen Rangers, Celtic to some extent.
2005, 2006 when Hearts had the title race.
Yes, okay, no, that's a fair point. I mean, you're looking at it and you're thinking, for most clubs, finishing third is an ambition which they very, very rarely, achieve. And you look at who else has won the league. Even the teams in the Premiership, Motherwell have won it once in between the wars. They were the only club apart from Celtic and Rangers between the wars that won the league. Kilmarnock have won it. Aberdeen have won it. Dundee United have won it. Dundee have won it. Hibs, actually, there's quite a lot we think about it. Hearts, I'm pretty sure Hibs did as well back in the day. So, but those are exceptions to the rule. In our lifetime, even my lifetime, it's been Celtic or Rangers, apart from the 80s when you had Aberdeen and Dundee United, which was brilliant. And it would be fabulous, but it's just not going to happen if we could actually have 3 or 4 teams competing properly. The crowds would go up even more, I think, for those clubs. And actually, it would drag the rest of Scottish football up because people would turn out on the day and play against those clubs in the same way that when you play Rangers. I mean, St Mirren were good against Rangers, Hibs were good against Rangers because you really bust a gut to play against these teams. So overall, that would be beneficial for Scottish football. It would improve the standard. We'd have a better chance at the international level. All these things just make sense. How you achieve it, I have not a clue because Celtic are a country mile ahead of everybody else just now.
Reagan, obviously you want Celtic to win the league. Of course you do, and every Celtic fan does. But are you one of these fans as a Celtic fan that welcomes a title race? Are you bothered if it's a title race? Or is it just a case of it's all about Celtic and nothing else? Because I think obviously as a fan of a club that's never going to win the title, and I think I can say that quite comfortably, I would love to be involved in the title race, but it's never going to happen. I mean, right now we're in a relegation battle. But would you welcome a title race, or are you not really that bothered about it?
I think outside of the Celtic matches this season, I've watched every Aberdeen match because I'm just intrigued with them. I enjoy watching them, and I want Aberdeen to win probably every other match apart from the Celtic match this season because I just like the way they're going about it. I really do. I think they've got a different approach. They've got a manager that's got a completely different idea. The players are buying into it. They've got players in there that I can really see. I mean, if you go back to even June time last year, these are players that even Neil Warnock, which is a bad word in Aberdeen these days, who said that these players weren't great to work under. I mean, take Jayden Morris for example. Jayden Morris has been absolutely brilliant for Aberdeen this season. I mean, I'm talking as if I'm an Aberdeen fan here, but I've been watching Aberdeen this season and I'm thinking, I just don't know what happened to them last season. It just seems as if they've got a structure. I think I read an article this week that I know I'm looking on a lot about Jayden Morris, but he spoke this week and he said that basically he expected to go back down to England this season because he didn't see a future. But when he spoke to the manager and he's seen the plans and he's seen what Aberdeen had in store, then he sort of changed his mind.
Right, well, before we move on, because we've got about half an hour to go, let's talk about predictions. Let's go Hearts against Aberdeen. I'm going to start off as a Hearts fan. I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to say 2-1 Hearts because they don't tend to lose to Aberdeen at home. 2-1 Hearts. Alistair?
I think it'll be 1-0 Hearts.
Okay, for a clean sheet as well. That'll be a change. Reagan?
3-2 Aberdeen.
You're getting muted. I'm knocking you off this. Right. Let's move on to the champion Celtic at home to Ross County. Obviously, Celtic off the back of that 1-1 draw against Bruges. Ross County coming off the back of a 2-1 win over Motherwell last week. Ross County currently sitting 8th. Obviously, Celtic, as I said, could stretch the lead at the top. Have to come at you, of course, Reagan, first. What's your thoughts on this game? Are you envisioning many changes on Saturday? And in fact, one thing I do want to talk about is Arne Engels. I don't think for £11 million he has been, and I said this on Tuesday when I did the show myself, I don't think he's been particularly great so far. Would you take maybe bringing Luke McKibben, for example?
Yeah, I would bring in Luke because I feel like he's every time he's come on the park, he's shown up really well. Also, you look at somebody like Bernardo as well. Bernardo scored very important goals against Dundee and Rangers. So I feel like Engels is only in at the moment because of the price tag. Obviously, Brendan Rodgers might say something different because he's seen him in training. But I was there again on on Wednesday night, Graham, and I just feel like I don't know. I don't think he's on the same wavelength as the rest of the squad at the moment. Maybe it took him a bit of time to adapt to Scottish football and the pace that Celtic play. Because I said this the other night to some friends that if you look at a lot of the squad that he's played with before, the squad he played with in Germany, right? They were all kind of playing behind the ball and not really attacking many teams. Now Celtic's a totally different kettle of fish. You know, Celtic are attacking the ball, creating loads of chances, taking set piece. He's taking penalties, so it's a big responsibility for him now because he's trying to impose himself on the game. But I think Brendan Rodgers made a great analogy earlier. He said, "Look at some of the players a year ago that people were writing off. People were writing off Bernardo. They were writing off the Nicholas as well. And look at Nicholas. He's hoping to get German international recognition as well. So I feel like in terms of that, it's all about time. But I think now is the time to probably drop him there and bring in some of the midfielders. But I think the point you made there in terms of bringing in players, that's something that Brendan Rodgers emphasised during July, and it's something that the board delivered because now he's got genuine options, Graham, to bring off the bench.
Yeah, this is the thing I said on Tuesday as well, Alistair. You look at that Celtic bench, there are 12 players on the bench. They've got the likes of Ida, they've got Yang, they've got McKeown, they've got such a strong squad, which is why I've said that I think they win the league quite comfortably. And I'm going up against a Ross County side that they were expected to hammer, let's be honest. Celtic can afford to make 3 or 4 changes, and it wouldn't really make that much difference.
No, it wouldn't. And I think, I can think of quite a few games Ross County have played at home against both sides of the Old Firm, and they've actually put on quite a good show, but they do tend to lose eventually. So, yeah, on their day, Celtic are going to beat everybody in the league. On their day, they're, even if the other team is playing at the peak of their ability, Celtic are going to beat every team in the league. And if the other team are not playing at the peak of their powers, witness Aberdeen in the semi-final, they're going to get absolutely gubbed. So it's one of these games where, again, going back to the gambling thing, I don't really know how it works, but the bookies will not be giving Celtic any, the odds on Ross County winning, I suspect, will be quite good if you want to go and lose some money. It's interesting the point that Reagan was making. I think, I'd include Anthony Ralston in that because there's a guy who actually came on loan to us a few years ago. He wasn't really wanted,
Yes.
and he's now playing for Scotland on a fairly regular basis. And there is he as good as, say, Jim Craig? Obviously not. But or indeed anybody else who's played right back for Celtic over the years. But he's a good player, and I think with Ingles, it's possibly just the Scottish weather. Maybe that's it. That's the other possibility. He's looked at the Scottish weather and thought, didn't fancy this much, because I could understand that. He's clearly a good player. And it's maybe just a question of giving him a bit of time. I talked about Sven Sprangler earlier on. Saints fans couldn't understand why he didn't actually get a game. It was the manager's choice. Not the same with in these circumstances with Celtic, but it's maybe time to just, as Regan says, give somebody else a shot and then basically put the onus on him to actually step up to the plate, because with that transfer fee on his head, he's going to want to prove that he can do it. Because I suspect, like a lot of people, he'll be coming to Celtic hoping to use it as a stepping stone elsewhere, and he's not going to do that if he doesn't perform.
I was just going to say, Reagan, I know you were at the game on Tuesday when I did the show, but I mean, a point against Bruges wasn't a bad result because I generally said on Tuesday, I thought Bruges were excellent. Some of the football they played,
Bruges are a good team.
the moving, the pace they had, I thought they were a very good side. So a draw is not a bad result.
Can you remember talking to John Collins? He had the pass, the move, and the tempo. But I mean, in, in terms of Bruges, I mean, I thought they were absolutely brilliant to watch. They're, like, it was as if they had 13 players in the park. You know, they look, I think, I mean, I was moaning that they had too much space, but it just felt like every time they went forward, they were going to score. I don't know how you felt.
No, some of the football they played, I mean, Celtic could have been 2-0 down quite comfortable before Maeda scored, but they were so good in possession. They were quick. The counter-attack was impressive. I mean, Carter Vickers, who's been brilliant for Celtic with a horrendous mistake. It's not like him, but, you know, they fought back and got the draw. But, I mean, if you look at Ross County going into this game, Alistair, I mean, like I said, they're sitting 8th, 15 points. It's a game that they're not going to expect to win if they come out and frustrate Celtic for a bit. But, I mean, overall, what have made the Ross County season so far? You know, a decent result against Motherwell last week. But what have made of their season so far under Don Kelly?
Well, again, people I know up there, they were quite negative about them. You know, people who are Ross County, people who are friends with Ross County fans, they told me that they were concerned they would get relegated because, you know, they weren't at the races quite often. And when they've not been good, like a lot of clubs, like they got hammered by Rangers, for example, they're not good. But the boy Hale's obviously a goal scorer. Yeah, so as long as you've got a goal scorer, you've got a chance. But they're doing better than I hoped. Let's put it like that. You know, I was kind of hoping that Ross County would be one of the clubs which would maybe keep us in the division at the start of the season. But I don't think there's anybody who you can actually look at in the Premiership now and go, yeah, they're an absolute stick on for relegation. We can look at the top, we know what's going to happen there. But everywhere else, you can put together a good run and you can go up the table. And they've done enough. Hibs are at the other end of the scale, obviously, but I think Ross County, particularly because they've obviously got an owner who will put his hand in his pocket if necessary, and he has done that over the years, particularly in the winter, you know, transfer break where they can actually go and bring in players. I can't see them being relegated just now. But then again, I don't know who's going to get relegated. But currently, as the league is just now, it's not them. And I think they'll lose to Celtic, but it's very similar to us playing Rangers, except obviously Celtic are an awful lot better than Rangers. On their day, Ross County will give them a good game, but as I said just a few minutes ago, if Celtic turn up at all, they'll tank them because they can do that to anybody.
Yeah, Reagan, prediction for this game? I'm assuming you'll go for a Celtic one.
I'll go Celtic 4, Ross County 0.
Alistair?
I was going to say that as well. In that case, just to be different, I will say 3-1 to Celtic.
I can't go 5-0 Celtic. Let's be different. Let's move on. We've got 3 games to go, about 12 minutes to go, so let's fire through these games. Let's go to Tannadice. Dave Deadpool McCabe's Dundee United team. Dundee United against St Mirren. Teams coming off the back of 2 very good results last week. United getting a 1-1 draw at Ibrox. St Mirren beating Aberdeen by 2-1. Dundee United currently sitting 4th in the league on 20 points. St Mirren sitting 6th on 18 points. I mean, I think, Reagan, both teams can be very happy with the start of the season so far. How do you see this game going? Because this is a very tough game to call, I think.
I think St Mirren will probably be the happier of the two of them, but I think Jim Goodwin will be really happy after his time at Aberdeen because he's really consolidated Dundee United. I mean, I don't know about Alistair, but I felt they would be a contender to possibly go straight back down. But I think fair play to Jim. I know he was at the Celtic Bruges match during the week as well, and he'll be hoping that he can get one up on his former team. But for me, Graham, I think Stephen Robinson may not be full of self-belief that he can get 3 points because the fact that they've been able to stop Aberdeen, that can only increase their self-belief that they can go and get the 3 points.
Alistair, a victory for United tomorrow puts them level with Rangers. I mean, I don't think any fans start the season could have imagined they'd be in this position because I think I said it last week when a lot of teams come up from the Championship, it's about staying up. United have been excellent. They play some really good football. They've got a striker in Sam Dalby that's scoring goals, another one last week. United have been excellent, and the incentive is there for them. Like I said, if they win tomorrow, they go level with Rangers.
Yeah, and I think I think it's a really tough game to call. So they could win tomorrow, but I can easily see St Mirren as well. I thought at the start of the season they would be, before a ball was kicked in the league, I thought they would be probably down at the bottom somewhere. Then they played against Dundee in that first game, and they were excellent. They were really, really good. And bear in mind that Dundee were a good team last season. And again, Dundee fans, I know, were like, can't believe how good United were. They weren't very happy about it. And they're obviously currently the top team in Tayside. So the fact that they could go third, that's not something that you would have expected at the start of the season. I don't think many people, I can't remember where we all said they'd finish up at the start of the year, but it certainly wasn't third. I think having seen St Mirren fairly recently, again, if they're at it, they're a really hard team. They really can batter you. Yep. So it's one of these games where a lot will depend on the day, who turns out. The fact that at home should give United a bit of an advantage, but St Mirren, I genuinely cannot call this. If you ask me to predict it, I'll tell you later on, but I wouldn't be surprised it ended up being a draw, just because the two teams could cancel each other out.
Yeah, I mean, Reagan, if results go their way tomorrow, if St Mirren were to win, they would actually overtake United going to fourth place. I mean, it's a big game for both teams tomorrow. I know that Robbie was at the game last week against Aberdeen. Probably surprised that they managed to get 3 points there. But again, somebody that I've been really impressed with is someone that's not signing a new contract, Olasanya. How important do you think it is for St Mirren that they can get him tied down? Because he's a massive threat.
He was very important to the win against Aberdeen. I managed to watch that game last week, and he was causing the Aberdeen back for a lot of problems. Because not only did he score goals, Graham, he stretches the back four, he makes them work hard, he presses well. And even when St Mirren were like playing long balls, he was kind of doing the kind of Dykes job that he does for Scotland, try to hold the ball up and bring people into play. So I think it's very important for St Mirren that they tie him down to a longer contract, because there'll be definitely people looking at him.
Yeah, Alistair, I mentioned this to Robbie a couple of weeks ago. I mean, managers' jobs are about what happens on the park and stuff, but you look at the stuff off the park that Robinson had to deal with. You look at the likes of Kevin Van Veen and stuff. I think the way that St Mirren have handled it, both Robinson and the kind of staff in the background as well, have been very, very impressive, because, to have to deal with all that on top of what he's had to deal with on the park, and to currently be sitting where they are, with the fact they could go fourth tomorrow, you have to give Robinson a lot of credit for the job he's done.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because he has, if you watch him on the touchline, and because where I sit in McDermott, the away dugout is basically right in front of us, and he's like the Duracell bunny. I mean, he absolutely is animated throughout the whole game. And sorry to bring up Craig Levein again, but you contrasted him with Craig Levein, and it was like, why can't our manager be like this? Why can't he actually show this kind of passion that he wants to win? And he, a lot of the sort of home fans would get upset by that, because they could see that this guy had that desire to win, and that obviously translates into the way he's dealt with it. Now, I suspect he's probably had a lot of backup from the club officials, because these kind of decisions obviously go above his head. What do you do with a player in those circumstances? And it can be really hard, particularly if it's a player who potentially is a fan's favourite. And way back in the day, we had the same situation with George Boyle allegedly taking white powder, etc. And those kind of things, you get all this duty of care and all this kind of thing. But actually, most fans probably are quite happy to see decisive action taken, going, look, no, that's not for our club. We're not doing it. Move on. And then, as I said, you see what he's done to the team. He is quite capable of galvanising them, because, if they're doing badly, you can see his halftime team talk has an impact on them. He's got players there who actually, O'Hara I really like. Scott Tanser, who most Saints fans would tell you is a big wuss, is actually a really, really good player for them. And you look at it and you think, yeah, they're a team which will be in the top half of the table. Again, I've said on this show several times, they are currently the St Johnstone of Scottish football. They're now punching above their weight. They're top six, and I can see them being regularly the top six, so long as they keep that squad together and keep the manager. Those things will make them a very difficult team to beat for most other clubs in the division.
Reagan, how much credit does Jim Goodwin deserve for the job he's done this season? Because again, you look back at, I said it before, the Aberdeen job, that kind of week that he had against Darvel, Hearts and Hibs, and the fact that he walked off at Easter Road with a bag in his hand, it didn't look great. But I said before that certain clubs, through certain managers, how big a job has Jim Goodwin done at United?
I think he's done a great job. I think that's a job on his CV that he can say that he's done very well. I think it's no secret that Dundee United have went through financial trouble the last couple of years with Tony Ashcall, the owner. So he's kind of made sure that they were stable as a club. And then Jim Goodwin really built on it. And because I remember when last season when he wasn't doing too well and all the fans were kind of turning on him. So it's important. I mean, we said this last season, Graham, with Michael in terms of Sean Gilwell won in 17 matches, but Motherwell still stuck by him because they see a clear plan. And I think sometimes social media can play a part. And Jim Goodwin's done a fantastic job. And like you said, Dundee United can go join third with Rangers. And if you'd asked any supporter of the Dundee club at the start of the season, right, in the first day of December, you'll be sitting in third place in the table. They would have laughed at your face.
Okay, prediction time: United against St Mirren. Let's start with Alistair because I know he's probably going to sit on the fence for this. Alistair, thoughts?
I'm not going to sit in the fence. I did promise you I would come up with a thought. I actually think that Dundee United might sneak it by 1 goal, but again, I can't see a lot of goals, so let's just say 2-1.
Reagan?
I'll go 2-0 to Dundee United.
I've got a cheat to talk about Alistair sitting on the fence because that's exactly what I'm going to do, but I'm the host. I'm going to go 1-1. So let's move to a team that basically Reagan just mentioned there. Let's go to Motherwell. Motherwell against Hibs. Motherwell currently sitting 5th on 19 points. Hibs sat at the bottom. Hopefully that's the same come tomorrow night. Sorry, Hibs fans. But yeah, you're looking at last week. Motherwell were beaten by St Ross County. Hibs obviously last week had that horrendous performance against Dundee, but then got a result, a 3-3 draw against Aberdeen. I don't know how to call this one, Reagan. You'd expect Motherwell to win just based on form, but surely Hibs have got to take a little bit of something out the fact that they came back to get a draw against Aberdeen.
Yeah, I mean, I was laughing with Michael last night saying that they would be better with the singer David Gray as the manager at the moment because I just feel like I think it's a bit of a shame for David Gray at the moment because he's been put in that place where he wants to be, but I think. I don't know if you guys agree, but if you look at Scott Brown, right, Scottish football legend, right, which David Gray is as well. But Scott Brown's went down to the Scottish Championship with Ayr. He's building Ayr a progressive club. They've opened a brand new stand. They're doing things well. They've got a bit of money now. They've got an American owner. I just feel like maybe he should have done a stepping stone FC, but he's sort of went into the big job full time. And I think if this was any other Hibs manager, he would be away by now. But I mean, how long do you go? Because David Gray, I'm sorry, but I want to get onto it. I mean, that last week, Graham, I mean, I think me and you spoke about it on Sunday. I mean, but it's Johan. I mean, it's an absolute disgrace. Every other player's talking to the manager about the tactics and stuff like that, and he's doing keepy uppies. What is he doing? It's just a bad look for the Scottish football that every other player's looking about, and see if the players are over there doing that, talking to the manager, and he's over there. Somebody needs to grab him by the scruff of the neck and say, "Look, this is not how you act." And I didn't see anybody even complaining to him.
Alistair, is that a case where a more experienced manager nips that in the bud? But because of the fact that it's David Gray, who's very inexperienced, he maybe doesn't have the experience to handle that kind of situation?
Short answer is yes. An experienced manager absolutely nips it in the bud. We've all seen things like this with our clubs over the years. I remember the famous Richard Foster and Danny Swanson getting sent off for a fight with each other. You can be quite certain that Tommy Wright dealt with
against Dundee. Was that against Dundee?
No, it was Hamilton. It was Hamilton.
Oh, so was I.
Aye. We nearly held out too, but I'll not go into that just now, so time's pressing. I feel for David Gray. You shouldn't make your heroes the club manager unless they're an absolutely brilliant manager. We made John Connolly our manager. Jeff Brown told me he knew within a week it was the wrong decision. John Connolly is the greatest player that's ever played for St Johnstone, and it just didn't work out, which is a great shame. Hibs, I think you said this last week, Graham, if they carry on with them, they've got a chance of getting relegated.
Yeah, and I do believe that. I think the job's too big for him. I said that last week. I don't think he's got the experience, but they got a decent result on Wednesday. But I talked about if results go their way, Reagan, and like St Mirren, if results go their way tomorrow, Motherwell jump up to fourth. And if you're Stephen and a Motherwell fan right now, you have to be delighted with how things are going for your club just now.
Yeah, I mean, you're over the moon. I mean, sure, Kettlewell have done a great job so far. They were very unfortunate about how they dealt with things, but I'm sure Kettlewell, he can only be happy with how his things have been going.
Yeah, I think that's right, because he's actually more or less had to sort of completely reshuffle his hand every season, hasn't he? You know, you've got players coming and going, and he lost his top goal scorer, and you normally think that's not good. It hasn't affected them, and we talk always about it was a 15-game run. You know, he's actually made a huge difference to Motherwell. He really has. I mean, they got a draw against us at Perth last minute. They beat us obviously at Motherwell fairly recently. They're just a very good team. They're this is the point it's making. There's not that much separating the teams just now. Really, there's nobody like a Livingston or maybe Dundee or Dundee United in previous seasons who were clearly not going to stay up. So it's really hard to say, but I do think that Motherwell will probably beat Hibs tomorrow. I've got a personal interest in them beating them, because obviously the more Hibs stay at the bottom, the more chance of us not staying at the bottom or not being at the bottom. And if we do lose to Rangers and Hibs win, then I think there is the point behind us. So it'll just shuffle up again. It'll get even tighter. And that'll put pressure on managers. The managers will play defensive football, etc., etc. They'll get bored and go home, you know. So it would be, for Scottish football, it would be a good thing, I suppose you could argue. But I think Motherwell have got too much for Hibs. I think if Hibs go behind and Motherwell can get two ahead, that's it, game over type of thing.
Yeah, I'm going Motherwell as well. Not to be biased, I just think Motherwell at home will probably get a win this game. And the final game of the weekend is Kilmarnock against Dundee. And apologies for leaving the last Kilmarnock Dundee fans. Kilmarnock with a 1-0 defeat to St Johnstone last week, of course, as Alistair will know. And the game last week for Dundee, they won 4-1 to Hibs. Again, a tough game to call. You've got Dundee currently sitting 7th on 15 points. Kilmarnock sitting 10th on 12 points. Now, at the start of the season, Alistair, I did say that there's always that one team that drops off. I didn't expect it to be Hearts. But Kilmarnock have really dropped off. They're having a very inconsistent season. How do you see this game going tomorrow?
Well, before I answer that question, I'd point out that I said Hearts would be third and Kilmarnock would be comfortably top six. So any on that basis, I wouldn't put too much weight on what I'm about to say. Kilmarnock, I still think they've got a good manager. They've got good players. They've got two great wingers. They're a good team to watch. Dundee, the Dundee fans tell me, are not all that strong at the back. You cannot go by the Hibs game, because Hibs were so far off it that I don't think you can read too much into that. Kilmarnock have kind of got to win this one. They really do, because if they don't, if Dundee manage to turn them over, then they are then getting cemented in that bottom half of the table. And I don't think that's acceptable for it's not acceptable for any fans. They don't like it, but it would be not a surprise to me if Dundee did win it. But again, it's like all these games are so hard to call. Dundee obviously lost their best player at Celtic, but they're still a stuffy team who can give you a game, and actually on their day I could see them winning, you know. So I wouldn't be surprised if they actually do, even though it's away, beat Kilmarnock. And of course, the other thing that Kilmarnock have got to do is actually finish the game with 11 players, because they've done that about 3 times this year, I think. So
That's another thing as well, because see if Kilmarnock don't go down to 10 men in all those games, they've still got a proper chance, but the Eric McInnes needs to sort out the discipline issue that obviously that's happening there, because it's clearly a problem for him, because if you're going down to 10 men in most games, then it's a big disadvantage for the squad.
They've had 6 red cards this season, and Liam Donnelly's had 2 of them. Now, if you can't keep 11 men at the park, you're going to cause yourself a lot of problems.
yeah, if Liam Donnelly were to get sent off again, you kind of think that Dale would be sort of having a conversation along the lines of letter P in the numbers 4 and 5. But Kilmarnock fans, I know, because as you know, I live in this neck of the woods, in that neck of the woods. They actually have punted Liam Donnelly before now, after his first red card. They don't think he's up to it. They'd almost rather have, had the boy Sanders, who went to us.
Also, he probably should have been sent off against Celtic as well. He kicked out at Spyco as well, so, and the referee, he could give him a yellow, but me and Robbie said to you at the time that would have probably been a red card as well. So there's been times where he's been let off it as well.
Yeah, and you can't, if you've got 10 men, the chances you win in the game are seriously you're diminished. I don't think this season anybody with 10 men's won. I mean, normally Celtic have a game where they get somebody sent off and then they win 3-2 in the last minute, but that's because they've got the sort of power to roll over teams. I don't think anybody else has won when they've gone out to 10 this season. I'm pretty sure that's the case. So I do I fear for Kilmarnock? Not really, because they're not my team, but they're the kind of club which you think should be in the top flight of Scottish football. If you look at those games there, nice to see Ross County there, because they're relatively newcomer to the top flight of Scottish football. There's a few other clubs down the leagues, Falkirk, obviously. These are, in Scottish terms, big clubs, and they should be playing each other on a regular basis.
Reagan, thoughts on this game tomorrow? Come on at Dundee. Who's your thoughts to win this one?
I think Dundee. I think they were nailed on to win it once the Highways went down to 10 men. But I think Dundee, just because I think they've got a strong squad. I think Simon Murray's a good player as well. So I'm going to say Dundee just to edge it. Graham.
Are you back in Dundee or Kilmarnock here, Alistair?
I think Dundee will win 2-1. I think, again, it's very, very tight, but I think Dundee will win, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going Dundee as well. So we are out of time. Thank you, as always, for your comments. Thank you to Alistair and Reagan. We are back next Friday. We'll be taking a break this week because there's no European games on. But as I said at the start of the show, if you can tune in, I think it's BBC iPlayer. Watch the Scotland Women game tonight at 7:35 against Finland's Easter Road. Come on, Scotland Women. Hopefully get a good result and get through. And we are back, as I said, next Friday. Thank you, as always, for joining us, and have a lovely weekend. And hopefully, for me, Hearts and St Johnstone, for Alistair, will win this weekend anyway. Come on, the Jambles. Catch you later, people.